Welcome to Emotional Sobriety, the next step in recovery, with Dr. Allen Berger and Tom Rutledge. When you say how I'm doing and how I'm feeling are two distinct things.
Yeah, I get confused. Yeah, you're right. It's a hazard of the trade. We get actually confused when people ask things like that. We go like, well, I don't know. It's like I haven't really spent much time checking today. It's like,
Yeah.
and that's not a satisfactory answer to people. It's like, it's like, they're really just saying hello. And they go, how you doing?
Yeah.
It's like, that's a good question, man. It's like,
Yeah. They're like, we really didn't need to stop that long in the hallway. I'm good.
yeah, I love it. I love it how sometimes, I don't know if you've done this, but I'll start answering the question in earnest. And I realize I look up at them and I realize they didn't want to know this. They were saying hello. It's
Yeah.
like, so you go like, well, so we buried the bodies and then we all got home by lunch. So it was good.
I'm going to Morocco in a few weeks with Sue-Ann, which should be cool.
Yeah.
And it'll be like our first long-term trip together, and it'll be like one of my most kind of like long periods of time out of the country, which and I don't know, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, wow, I'm gonna see some really cool stuff when I go to
Yeah.
Morocco.
Oh God, yeah.
Good
Speaking
to
of
see.
somebody who could use some insight, there's Joe. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. God, somebody talk some sense to this guy. Jesus.
Do you know what you can tell about someone with two black eyes?
What?
You got to tell them everything twice.
God. Have you ever seen this movie Thief with James Caan from the 80s?
Oh, I don't think so.
It's James Caan, and he's like an ex-con, he's an ex-con, he's a Folsom Prison guy, but he's like a professional jewel thief. But it's like a very realistic, like, I think it came out in like 1980, either 1980 or like 1981, so like right at the beginning of the 80s. And it's just all about a guy, it's the classic crime story. He wants to make enough and then get out. But it's kind of Marxist in that it's like all about like this man and he all he's got is his labor, and he's fiercely protective of like his status as like a working man and not wanting to, he doesn't want to be absorbed into like the organized crime syndicates that want to basically exploit his thievery and turn him out, and he's trying to adopt a kid, and it's just, I don't know. I'm not doing it justice, but there's a lot to it. And James Caan always says it was one of his like proudest performances.
That's great. I never thought about a thief in private practice. Yeah, that's a good point. It's like I don't want to, because that's the way we are. Well, I don't want to work for anybody.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah, he's
it's
got
like
this great
it's-
line. He's got this great line in the movie. It's like, I am Joe Boss of my own destiny.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really.
That's great.
They channeled that a little bit in Gross Point Blank.
Yes.
Another one of
I
my
love
favorite
it.
films.
Got
Yeah, I
the
love it.
brother and sisters, John Cusack and his sister
Joan.
Joan Cusack, and Dan Aykroyd is trying to organize the hitman, right? And he doesn't want to,
Oh yeah, he's like, your
about
union
working
sucks. I'm not
solo.
joining.
Who's the guy who plays John Cusack's psychiatrist?
Oh, Alan Arkin.
Oh God, Alan Arkin, so amazing.
Yeah, so he's a hitman, and he's starting to feel guilty about what he does, but he doesn't want to tell the psychiatrist what he does, and it eventually comes out, and
He's like, Martin, I'm emotionally involved with you. You told me what you did for a living. Now I don't want to see you anymore.
Yeah, and he tries to sort of, reground him by saying, "I know who you are, and I know where you live."
Yeah,
That isn't helping. That isn't helping.
Yeah, I just imagine when he's leaving that like angry voicemail on his psychiatrist. I'm just imagining Alan getting a call like that, like during one of the sessions, and just like,
well, probably either Tom or Alan have had those.
I don't remember enough of this movie. I got to go back and watch it. Yeah.
I was hoping we can read just today's quote from Beyond Belief, because it's a really good one, and I had some thoughts that came to me about that, if you guys don't mind. Asking the right questions takes as much skill as giving the right answers, by Robert Half, born in 1918. Even before our personal recovery is assured, we find ourselves being asked for help or advice from those who are even greener than we are. Oh, my dog, I want to say what she needs to hear, but I just don't know what to say. The truth is that people need to feel heard more than they need to be told. Some of us wag fingers and tell the new person how it is and what to do. Some of us liken having a domineering sponsor to being loved. They care about me enough to tell me off. This type of dynamic doesn't work forever. Newcomers mature quickly, and as they outgrow this dominant, submissive role play, it will put strain on the relationship, if not an end to it. Self-evaluation won't uncover all the answers until we uncover the right questions. We're looking in 360 degrees for answers. Helping others can be more about listening than knowing what to say. How does that make you feel? And what else do you think this could mean? Are good questions to ask because, firstly, we don't know the answers. They do. Secondly, what is true for us might not be true for someone else. Thirdly, nobody likes to be controlled. Well, not all the time, that is. The big book is still quite theatrical, but it went through a rigorous toning down. Professionals were asked to review the first draft of Alcoholics Anonymous and encourage the fellowship to take out many of the you must statements and replace them with these suggestions and our experience. It is helpful to frame what we hear as experience rather than expertise. When tempted to say, face it, your life is unmanageable, can I try, how are you managing? Instead of saying, turn it over, can I say, I was a control freak and it didn't help me much. How about you? Questions help me help others find their own answers.
Damn, Joe, that's a whole self-help book in a couple of pages. I mean, that's amazing. That's deep. There's, before we started, Patrick and I we asked each other how we were doing, and we were talking about how one of the hazards of our trade is we get confused by that question. You know, it's like we don't know what you're really asking, and we're trying to figure it out. But I mean, that just I love things like that can be that concise. I'm a fan of concision. I don't do it talking, but I do it writing, and it's like, wow, I could sit there and take that every day for the next month and have things to work on. That's amazing. I love it.
I mean, it was a great discipline to say what you want to say in a page. Right?
No,
it's very difficult for me.
It's class. Well, it's a great writing exercise. I call it classified ad writing. Of course, young people don't remember what classified ads were, but you paid by the word, and it's like. And
I remember. I'm not that young.
Okay, well, you're probably on the border. It's like, but I remember, I can't remember who did it. A teacher of mine, one point just had this exercise, and I use it still when I'm writing. Is just keep going back to something, and you take out every word you could possibly take out. I mean, you're not even looking at the content. You're just saying, can I take this word out? You're not always going to use exactly what you come up with, but it's amazing how many words you don't need, And so, you're very good at it, Joe.
Well, no, it was like agonizing. I've always admired Chris Christopherson's an example of a songwriter who says so much in a sentence, right?
Oh,
there's a whole story, a whole backstory.
The whole 2 lines, and you're already way into the story.
I was going to use this as a jumping off point. So I saw some family in San Francisco over the weekend. It was my aunt's 89th birthday, and on the whole, it was like a good experience. But I was very sad because I have a cousin who's around my age, from Houston, and he had gone to rehab like a year ago or something like that. And he's been struggling with addiction as long as I have, and he relapsed. He got off the plane drunk, and he's like kind of on a run now. And I've just been like, I talked to my mom a little bit last night, and I would really like to help him, but I have some sense of how this goes. It's like, he's done with the run when he's done with it, but I've just been trying to think of, I need to reach out to him and tell him that I care about him and remind him if he's in any kind of headspace to receive the message that, he knows that he can't do this, or he knows that, he knows he's an alcoholic. I know I know that he knows, and that, he's going to lose his he's going to lose his house. He's going to lose where he's living. He's going to lose all this stuff that he's built, over the last stretch of time. But I read this passage, this daily reflection, and I suppose that is what I can offer him, right? It's not any kind of imperious expertise. It's basically offer him listening,
And the other part
present listening.
is they're so powerful. We're so fortunate to have this as recovering, addicts and assholes. Is the idea, I know for me, da 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 da, and we mean it genuinely, because rather than saying, you can't do this, you go like, I know I can't do that. It's like, I mean, as a therapist, I love it, because basically when people want to resist, they go like, well, and I go like, I'm not talking about you. I was talking about me. It's like, what you're doing is you just lay, and it's so, there's such a visual to that. Is you lay it out in front of somebody, and then you just leave it. You're not trying to, when I have a client in my office and I'm trying to show them how to do that, I'll put a pillow in front of them, and then I'll ask their permission to grab their arms. And then I'll say that what I'm not doing is I'm not shoving the pillow into your chest and taking your arms and, making you hold on to the thing. Because the moment I do that, what is going to happen when I walk away? You're going to throw that pillow as far away as you possibly can. But if I leave it there, you're at least going to be curious about it. And and see, I love that. That's a perfect opportunity to do that with is it your cousin?
Yeah, it's my cousin, and so I mean,
Mm.
well, if I say, well, hey, DJ, I know that I can't drink, and I know what'll happen if I go on a bender, then wouldn't he just say like, well, yeah, that's you, you would fuck your life up. I'm gonna do great, and
Okay.
Probably.
You use your judgment about how you say that. But when somebody says that stuff, it's like, so it may not be the best thing to say to that person at that time. But it's like, that's okay. I mean,
Yeah.
they have a right to do that. And the
Right.
truth is, they've already heard you. They heard you. It's like I mean, how many? See, I think one of the things I had to really get my head around, and certainly as a therapist, but also just in terms of my own insights, is I'm not going to every wonderful insight I've had in my life. I don't get it and then go like, that's great. That's perfect. Let's get that. Let's get busy. It's like, no, these things, sometimes they have to be repeated. Sometimes they had two black eyes, you have to tell me at least twice.
You know, I really like, I stand by what I wrote in terms of people don't need to be told, they need to feel heard, right? And
Yeah.
if your cousin can know that you hear him without judgment and you love him, you care about him, and his experience reminds you of a particular experience of your own, how can anyone disagree with someone's experience? That's what Tom was alluding to, right? It's impossible to disagree with that. Well, that's my experience, and I totally respect you may have a completely different experience. You may even have a different take on my experience, but this is my experience of my experience.
Right.
Take it or leave it.
Well, the other thing, Joe, is what you just said is the other advantage we have when you already have the history. Like I mean, I'm making them stories here, so just to fit in here, but that if your cousin knows about recovery, knows that you're in recovery, stuff like that, it's like, my little control guy, he loves an opportunity to point out something, because I mean, with good intentions, but it's like, you don't even have to. It's what Joe says. This is not a situation where you necessarily need to go to content. It's just, I love you and I'm here for you, man. It's like,
well, I am grateful for that, because I don't have a lot in the content department here. I'm just calling to listen.
You do, but it would not be well spent here. I mean, you're not doing. I mean, you have a lot of content, but it's like. I mean, if I'm using drinking, that's not the time for me to. I don't care how good your content is. That's not good. You're not going to get that true. It'll bounce off.
And even if you say exactly the right words, they're going to hear it differently than you meant it.
Exactly.
Right. So it's like you can't give the perfect talk because you can't control how people will hear it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, thanks, guys. I mean, this is helpful, and I think where I will set my expectation, it's the one of our favorite words around here, is just I will be with him. I will, he's in Houston, right? But like I will be with him on the phone and just let him talk about his experience of the weekend we just had, and yeah, and just indicate to him that I care about him and I'm here for him, and I'm very like conscious of. I like that word bleeding deacons, like Patrick from Friendly Circle Berlin likes to use it a lot. But I've been very wary of like, because I've gotten really into AA and he is not felt as at home in AA, to not, seem as like though I'm proselytizing, about any of it. And so I'm going to continue to try and hold to that. And yeah, it sucks. I mean, like I know how much work he did to get the sobriety that he had. And so it's, I was worried before the trip that like he might have relapsed. And then when it happened, I was just like, just because I know what that means. You know what I mean? You guys have all been through it with friends and
Yeah.
It's hardest with family because it requires a certain indifference is a bad word because there's love, right? And there's compassion, but there's no persuasion. There's no dissuasion. Like when I'm talking to someone I don't know, I'm not trying to talk them out of their point of view, right? I'm just
Right.
telling them how it is for me, right? But when you care too much because you're enmeshed, well, it's hard to tell my son, my sister, someone close to me that I don't care if you get sober because I don't mean it.
There's no consequence for me when you do this. When you hurt yourself, it's like that's up to you, and because I think when people even in relationship is just it's not good to leave that there, because I think that people we're still stuck in that program that basically I'm always doing something for somebody else. And one of my favorite things to say about recovery is do not volunteer for this and then act like somebody's made you do it. But we've all done that. And some people do it a lot. It's like, who are you resisting? You're the one, that has the key and unlocked the door and brought me in here.
That is a perfect segue into a theme that you suggested, Tom, about victimhood and victim mentality, which we want to be careful, in kind of talking about what we mean by that. But,
it's not my fault.
Yeah. But I don't know, when you sent that suggestion about, just victim mentality and emotional sobriety, I just think of something Bill Cleveland said about the alibi system falls away and the excuse system falls away, kind of like in early sobriety. And that was one of the first things I noticed when I really started to get some time and to do this thing is it was everybody else's fault, or I had so many reasons, to behave the way that I was behaving for the longest time. And then I realized that I had so much agency that I was just not claiming about like the directions that my life would take. And so that is kind of like, that is the road, of not allowing myself to kind of like be the victim, but to kind of like change the things I can, accept the things I can't. Where does it come to you guys, this idea?
Well, one of the things you said is just made me think about that to get out of the all or none thinking. People will say like, well, I'm not a. It's like, no, I don't blame people. I don't blame, It's like, well, what I would say in my history is I was never blaming people effectively. It's like, in other words, I was still sounding like I was speaking from a victim mentality, but I wasn't successful in letting myself off the hook to myself. I still went away from that conversation feeling like shit. You know, I mean, I think there are some people who can do that other thing. I don't think I know many of them, but there are some people who basically can, a real narcissistic position is I can successfully say, you know, this happened because of you guys, and I can walk away and feel free and clear of that. I mean, most of us are not anywhere near that. You know, I'm sitting there, I'm scrambling to try to make myself make sense to myself. And I'm saying, well, it's this because of this, because of this, you know, the butt's a reflex, you know, but it's like, you know, I do that in couple stuff all the time. I go like, you know, and I say, just because I'm not saying what you're getting ready to say is not real. It's not, you know, important, but it's like when you start there, it's like you're shutting the whole conversation down, you know, because you're avoiding just saying either I'll accept responsibility, or I don't have. You can have, again, like what you were saying, Joe. You can have your perception even when it includes your perception of me.
Yeah.
And that's a hard one. And that's still not. That's not even any of my business.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a sort of bumper sticker AA thing. Your opinion of me is none of my business.
I love that. God, it's so important. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, a victim's a hot word because it's like I talk about like I love not being a clinician. Because I can talk about small d depression or capital D depression, right? Where, you know, I can be sad, or I can have a state that requires medical and clinical intervention, right? And victimhood I can have without being victim to a gross injustice that needs to be litigated.
It's a mentality. Yeah.
That's right. And it's Allen uses the word stuck, which I like because it's less. You know, it's not as hot a word as victim, right? He talks about this Roger guy who's stuck in a state in his recovery, and being stuck isn't a sign that your program isn't working. It's probably a sign that your program is working, because now what are we going to do with it? How do we get unstuck? And for me, that victim mentality, which I can have in traffic. And again, I'm not talking about, you know, being, you know, discriminated against, right? I'm
right,
talking
because
about,
there are real victims and there is
Yes,
actual injustice, and that we got to preface with that.
We need to really clarify those definitions because they're very important. And you know, and from a mentality point of view, if you tell me you're not sometimes a victim in traffic, you're lying to me. It's like. I mean, for me, it's shorter lived, you know.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and that's the thing I was talking to you about when I talked about the idea of this theme, Patrick, was because the word I used to start with was just reframing, just looking at it from a different perspective. That's how you get out of victim mentality, and it's like you know, and I just like to define it this way. Being victim mentality. A victim mentality is somebody who believes, and this is our cultural belief.
Sign me up.
How I am doing is determined by what happens to me. It's like, okay, before we get into this conversation, or if everybody didn't know, they'd go like, well, that just seems logical. You know, it's like what we do is we take it the other part, for the next step, which is no, how I am doing is always determined by how I feel and think about what happened to me, how I process it, how I choose my rational mind to see it. And very often we don't know. That's what part of our emotional sobriety is reinstalling or bringing that up so that we know that we not only have the right to choose how we're going to perceive something, we have a responsibility to do that in a way that puts us in a place where it helps us be unstuck. And I like using the word victim because I think it's good for us to talk with people and distinguish between these two definitions and these two uses for it. Yeah. If something bad has happened to you and because I know a lot of people who have done a much better job than me, that bad shit has happened to them far more than me, and they don't have a victim mentality. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
those are people,
absolutely.
they've used it to be stronger. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. People who are incarcerated who refuse to feel, you know, trapped. Right? I am
yeah, yeah.
free. Right? You know. But in that, when there's a triangle, right? With when I'm feeling victimized, there's a perpetrator, and maybe added to the story can be a rescuer,
Rescue. Yeah.
or maybe an enabler, right? And
Hmm.
the perpetrator might not be wholly to blame, but is scapegoated when I'm the victim, right? It's clearly the
Right.
perpetrator's fault,
Hmm.
right? And then the rescuer, well, it's great to have a shoulder to lean on, but I can't empower myself by requiring the rescuer to solve my problem. And
Right.
so and all of these are like caricatures, right? They're like
Right.
cartoon characters to me,
Hmm.
and I can be a perpetrator in this triangle. I can be a rescuer. I can be the victim. And again, I'm not talking about chronic trauma or attachment issues. I'm talking about my gut reaction to, how are you doing? Well, fucking, have you seen what they're doing with the tariffs or blah?
Right. The short version is our attitude in all the various ways we can look at that. It's like
Yeah,
we talk about this a lot in here. It's not a what, it's a how.
yeah,
It's like so. My next client is somebody who's been basically the way I would describe her, and I would say that I've said that to her face is somebody who's been sexually abused since she landed on the planet.
yeah,
It's like, I mean, there is no doubt. I mean, she has just a whole story full of things that she had no control over, things that happened to her, and not, in beginning when she had zero choice even about how to perceive it as a kid. So, we as adults, even when people do bad things, we still we have choice about how we're gonna process it, and we can get help to do that. But it's like, most of us became the victim mentality stuff because some real things happen to us, and we learn to be powerless with it, and not powerless, helpless.
just what you've described about this client you're going to speak to. I think of so many people I know in recovery that I play a role, and I check in with them. How are you doing with this and that sort of thing? And, years later, they're still examining the crime scene.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, like, how much more purging do you need? And, I can't control that, right? Like I don't want to enable, I don't want, but I want to show that I care. And who knows when someone is ready. You see,
Yeah.
a true victim in many cases doesn't have victimhood, because, like in the case of me, well, I was the architect of my own misfortune.
Hmm.
If I hadn't this, it wouldn't have happened. If I hadn't that,
Hmm.
they wouldn't have responded that way. Uh,
Hmm.
uh, I'm as likely to self blame as I am to out a perpetrator. In in a more serious thing, but yeah, it's just so nuanced, isn't it? And
Hmm.
again, this is fun to talk about in a podcast. The weight of having that on my shoulders, if I was a clinician, you're a facilitator, not a
Yeah.
demigod, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Well, what I can fall into is I I take things upon myself to do, and then I complain about how hard they are to do.
Yeah,
Like that. I think that is where
I
my
volunteer and act like I'm being made to do it. It's like,
yeah,
exactly that happens to me all the
it was
time.
your
Yeah.
idea. It's like,
And that's what helps. No, but if I can, what kind of helps to bring the temperature down is when I can identify that.
yeah,
Yeah.
Like, why am I stressed out? You know what I mean? Like, why do I feel so put upon? Can I trace
yeah,
that to its origin? The origin was that I decided to do something very challenging, and now it's proving to be as challenging as I thought it might be. And you know,
and
maybe
one
I
challenge,
can adjust. Yeah.
Well, one challenge with that is when we either do that for ourselves or in a conversation where we can do that for each other, where we can bring ourselves to be reminded that this is your choice. So if I'm in the midst of something that's very difficult, the most challenging thing you can put to me, or I can put to myself, is since it's your choice, Tom, you don't have to keep doing it. You could stop. You know, anything that brings me back to the point of decision is going to improve my integrity. I think it's like the truth is, even if I decide, even if you would look at what I'm saying, I've decided I'm not going to do that anymore. And even if you or both of one of you or both of you go like, well, that's kind of pitiful. I thought he was better. I thought he was a better man than that. But it's like, maybe you thought that, but it's like the truth is, I made the choice. You know, I'm owning it. If I'm gonna, if you know what, you know, that's the emotional sobriety part. That's the part where you step up, take responsibility, and go like, okay, you know, we're not claiming any time we make a decision that it's always the right decision. You know,
and it isn't. Stop the bad behavior, start the good behavior. That's where discernment comes in, right? You know,
yes.
a popular word with Allen, like. Mm-hmm. Purging and examining, the suffering from being victimized. Good, yeah. Right? You know, you don't need to say that's, your dog's been dead for 3 weeks. Can you get another dog and move on? Like there isn't a timeline on these things, right? And
no, that's a great point. That this is not associated with your pain. Your pain.
That's right.
I'm not being a victim just because I'm telling you I'm in great pain. That's just choices,
and that's it, right? It's empowerment. I can choose to get in touch with my suffering, and I'm choosing that, so I'm not stuck. Right? Mm-hmm. I can choose to. Gain some perspective and view the perpetrator as a victim of somebody else's infliction, right? I can make any of these choices. I can refuse to forgive the perpetrator. I can practice forgiveness for the perpetrator. Every one of those characters feels like the good guy, the rescuer, the victim, the perpetrator, right? And feels misunderstood by the others because they're caricatures.
Right. My father, I love that man, and he was a good man, but he never taught me a goddamn thing about standing up for myself. You know, he couldn't stand up to my mother. He was. I mean, he had a big heart, but it's like. Therapist asked me one time when I was telling about something bad happened. She said, "Well, did you tell your dad?" And I went, "Why would I tell my dad?" You know, it's like he wasn't even. I didn't see him even as protective. But what I use as an example is like I could blame him, and I went through a period of doing that. I also learned that his father was a drinking alcoholic when he was a kid, never spoke to him, beat him on a regular basis, and left him with all the responsibility in the house, including his dying mother. Okay, so now I should blame my grandfather. No, I don't know my grandfather's story, but I know there's a story. I know that there is, because I knew that man. I grew up with him in my household. It's like I never knew any of this bad stuff about him. It's like something happened to that guy, And while he was drinking, that was all bets were off, and that was happening. It's like so. Eventually, just blame becomes useless. It's like and one of my favorite little one-liners is blame it, and I think it's just true. Blame is a good place to visit. You just don't want to live there. Yeah. Sometimes we need to help people get to that. I need to get to that, but it's for a very specific purpose, so I can stop blaming myself for everything. It's nice. I need to put the target out here. Yeah. When somebody can yell at their disease rather than at themselves. I mean, I literally used to hit myself in the solar plexus when I would get just so frustrated. And I had a therapist that one time, I'd be bruised. It's like when I had a therapist I trusted enough to tell her I did that. And she said, well, and I loved her. She said, well, of course. I went, what? she said, as long as the demon is inside you, how else are you going to attack him? You know, and I get
That's a
chills
big
when I
one.
say
Yeah.
that. That changed. That changed. That took a while for it to sink in again, but it changed my life.
That is such a visual, the idea of taking the suffering inside you and externalizing it, and then you can go DEFCON 4 on it, you know?
That's right. That's what that chair's for, man. That's
Yeah.
that's what Allen's Gestalt chair is there for. Put him in the chair,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden you go like, now tell that now let's beat the shit out together. Let's beat the shit out of that guy, you know, symbolically.
I love being at this age because I'm sure I knew that, but now it's a profound new experience for me.
Well, I love being at this age because the other thing is with each other's help and support, we've also come to accept that we are forgetting machines.
Yeah.
You know, that we're never, I mean, think about all this. We're not ever learning anything new or original. We're just relearning.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing. It's like, you know, I say, you know, basically I call it Post-it note therapy. You know, it's like, and we're each other's Post-it notes.
Yeah.
You know, I'm more likely you don't even have to sometimes remind me if we're all sitting around here having this conversation, just because you guys are who you are and we have the history we have. I tend to remember shit more when we're talking, you know, and if I don't remember it, one of you knows how each of you or one of you will say something to me.
Give you a friendly nudge.
Yeah. Don't forget about this. And I'm like, oh, good point.
Yeah. I try to read a book and absorb every word. Impossible. Halfway through the page, I'm going to be thinking about myself anyway.
I got to where I could actually read a lot more because I let go of the expectation that I had to be really. I mean, I didn't think of it this way, but I was reading as if I needed to memorize it. It'll slow you down, man. It's like I just you know, somebody taught me just believe that whatever you need, you're absorbing it.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing I just said, if we need it again, it'll come back again.
Yeah. In fact, you're not reading the words off the page. They'll be there next week.
That's right. I love that, Joe. That's a great visual too. It's like,
but I had a visual while you were talking. When I'm reading a book, like I'm in a victim mentality and the book is the rescuer. Save me, right? With a new insight, a new awareness, the final piece of the puzzle.
Oh God. In the early days, especially, because I would read a book and it would be so good. And I would go like, this is it, man. This is great. And then I couldn't, and we all know the answer to this now, but this, when I was younger, it was like, you know, it was good for a while, but then pretty soon I was back to the way I was. It's like, you know, and this is the argument that basically what were we missing? The thing that we all three harp on. I don't think that's it's an exaggeration. I started to say over exaggeration, which is a stupid thing. It's like, but an exaggeration to say that
I like to say mega exaggeration. It's the most kind of exaggerating.
About a slight exaggeration. Is there such a thing as that? I mean, I've lost my point entirely. And it's like, so
I'm sorry.
No, that's another thing I've also become much more comfortable with.
You know what I'll say just about my own victim mentality, and it's no surprise of why, you know, it was its strongest when I was drinking and using. It's because I was like, in essence, I was tracking muddy footprints all over the ground wherever I was going, but I was not aware that I was doing it. There was such a cloud, there was so much fog surrounding me. You know what I mean? That like I completely lost the plot for, you know, how the pain was being inflicted, where it was coming from, and the kind of like collateral damage, you know, of like my behavior and my decisions. But like. That's like one of the great things about early on is that you just get a little bit clear and you start to see the footprints.
I don't know if I'd use this analogy. I'm sure I did because I talked about coming from Toronto and driving to the California desert, right? You know, 3 days in, you know, like I'm almost there. right? I'm feeling pretty confident I'm going to make it. But when I get in the car and start driving, the ditch, I'm still as close to the ditch as I was when I started my journey.
That's a dangerous thought. Is what I've come to. It's like, don't tell me that I'm beyond something, because
Yeah.
I've got an ego, and it's gotten me in a lot of trouble in my life. And basically, I'm protecting myself from that ego taking that thought, and I'm not, not, at least I'm not where Patrick is. It's like, it's like, no, and I love that one, Joe. It's like I'm as close to the ditch as I ever was.
Yeah. It's new risks, right?
Yeah.
Including complacency.
Well, this was a great show today.
It sure was. I would recommend to anybody to listen to it twice. I know I will.
Yeah. I just get such a kick out of Joe whenever you say that you listen to, even the ones
Every
that you
episode.
participated in. It's I'm always trying to impress you. So
Yeah, well, it's hard for the three of us to get together without thinking, now what would Alan say here?
yeah, his ghost is hovering over us all right now.
I mean, there's a few reasons why this is like a 5 out of 5 star podcast. One is it's not ivory tower. It's people talking about where they are right now in their recovery, and having the problems we're talking about. And it's, there's a technical side to it that is beautifully done.
I so appreciate that. And hey, if any of our listeners would like to hang out with a couple people who know even less than the three of us here, I'm doing another podcast. It's called Outside Issues, and we talk about emotional sobriety related and recovery subjects. I do it with a social worker from Seattle, but we do a side order of freaking out about politics. So you're welcome to join us.
Needs to be done. Good.
That's a good way to process your victimization.
Oh God, yeah.
God.
Every week I'm re-victimized. Yeah.